There we are. So I have back on the program Janetta Jane. Thanks for being on.
My pleasure. So great to see you again, Matthias.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I love the background, the snow. It's
Well, the
really
East Coast, this is how it looks in Canada right now, and most of it. The East Coast just had a whopping amount of snow for the beginning of November.
hmm
So it's not like this where I live. This is, I just put the background on because I found it so pretty. But
Yeah.
it's just one of those fun backgrounds. But nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I believe it's been at like almost 2 years, probably. Yeah,
That wouldn't
and a lot
surprise me.
has
Yeah.
changed.
A lot has
Yeah.
changed. A lot of things going down.
Okay, let's start with since you're in Canada. Um, the new Prime Minister Carney, he seems to be in some ways worse than the one before, which I don't know how that's possible, but what's your take on Carney? What's your take on Carney?
I believe pretty much across the board that all the politicians at the highest level are corrupt, are sociopaths, and really don't care for us at all. They're in for their own selfish interest. Now, there may be a few that are a little bit better, but they usually don't survive. They usually get taken out. I kind of believe that Carney and Trudeau and all the prime ministers before him here in Canada were out for selfish means and not so
hmm
much for the people. And I think generally, maybe even globally, a lot of people are starting to see this and are realizing we're going to have to bring in that beautiful world we want and not rely on our prime minister or president or whoever.
Yeah, yeah, like the strength of the country is its people. But the thing is that um, Canada's been importing a lot of people, and at least it's not from um, well, I think I've heard that there's a lot of people from India that have come to Canada, and it's a different culture. It's a different culture for sure. So they're still integrating into Canadian uh, culture and values, but that usually takes a while, some time, right?
If ever, right? I mean,
Yeah,
multiculturalism does not have a great record globally. It usually doesn't work. People do not want to give up their cultures, which is their language, their religion, above all, their customs. And what we're seeing is a really more than even East Indians, we're seeing a big influx of Muslims, and there's some problems coming with that. We're seeing a lot in Quebec right now, where my daughter lives. Um, Sharia law does not go with our culture.
mm,
And
right,
look what's happened in UK, right? Look what's been going down where that's been going in, and now it's starting more in Canada, all over.
right.
And their laws are being upheld while Christian laws, for example, are not. People can't we when I grew up, we would read the Lord's Prayer every day, which is really a beautiful
In
prayer.
school?
Yeah, in school, which is really a
Mm,
beautiful prayer, whether you're Christian or not. There was one or two people, one that used to leave the class for that prayer. But now people are expected to actually put up with their prayers 3 times a day. Well, I think the whole world would benefit from work stopping and everybody going and sitting in meditation or prayer 3 times a day. But
right,
really loud sounds may not be the best way to do that. I find it disruptive personally. When I meditate, I go into silence. That's that's to me is beautiful. And if we're sharing our world with others, that might be something, if practices could be done, but it doesn't go that way because anyway, I'm going on a
Mm.
bit here,
Mo-
but
Well, it's preferential
big problem.
treatment. That's the problem. That it's not just the Muslims culture. Some of it, especially in the Middle East, is different, and the way they treat women is not ideal. And a lot of them, there's abuse, and then the UK government wants to, and also in Canada, I believe, and some other well, some European countries, they want to believe so badly that multiculturalism is good, that they turn a blind eye on the crime committed against particularly women in the West,
Yeah.
um, by Muslim men. And I think, to turn a blind eye on the guilty is really the cruelty on women, and I
Mm,
think
great.
I think eventually that will, yeah, that itself should be a crime, to not, to release people, like, that you remember that, that guy on the train that just stabbed a Ukrainian woman in America.
Mm.
That guy was released, uh, I think at least 10 times by lenient judges. So this could have been easily avoided. Um,
Perhaps he was part of, like, I mean, it's just the corruption is getting thicker and thicker, especially where the courts are concerned,
mm,
Perhaps that guy was hired to create division. Perhaps he was hired to create havoc. Like, look at what they're doing now. We just had this big culling of a bunch of ostriches in British Columbia, where I live. And some of this has gone around the world because these were beautiful birds. And they were also immune to the bird flu. And so they were looking at these as a potential species that might be healthier. And then, despite all the pushback, they came in and they killed 500, just shot them all down with all these
oh
people
wow.
around. And there's a big outcry. And then I just did a post of this on Facebook, which I could probably share, but I'm not organized to do that to my whiteboard or whatever. But basically, the front page of the news, MSNBC, is that the small group of anti-vaxxer, right-wing conspiracy theorists, um, very, very negative, set to lose their fight against these miracle birds, and the way and they lost. And it was just written in such a way that before people even read the article, they were convinced that it was the anti-vaxxers. And this was British Columbians were in on this, heart and soul, all of us, not most of us. It wasn't a political thing, but right away they're putting it into this right-wing conspiracy theorist thing, so that anybody that disagrees with it becomes so afraid they don't want to be pigeonholed into that little group to like it. So immediately they feel like, oh my God, I can't like that. It's the crazy people, right? Just like they did through COVID. And while we know they tend to do problem solution when it comes to big things, they present a problem
Mm.
that they, meaning the elite, that they tend to create, and then they present a solution. And usually the solution results in us giving up more control, giving up more power, giving up more money, and them taking on more.
Can you explain,
And so
the
I
ostrich?
suspect
The ostrich. So the story then, prompted division from MSNBC. You either one or the other.
the MSNBC just covered the stories in an article 2 days ago. I mean, I could probably, I don't know if it's set for me to share my screen too. I could probably bring up Facebook and show, but essentially it was a very divisional article over something that people have been so upset about here.
Mm.
There was really no reason that we know of that they needed to take them out, except potentially what is believed that they were a rare breed that would not become infected by all these different viruses that have been going
Oh
around and
wow.
taking out the poultry industry. They've been killing millions of chickens and birds. I mean, that is a massive industry for food. And they have been doing this for years, taking out all sorts of livestock, whatever, saying it's this or
Right.
that. And
So they took out ostriches.
is
They
it
took
that,
out
or is it
ostriches. Wow.
for ostriches? It was it actually that, or was it that they just don't want us to have a big food supply? Winter is coming. You know, there's a lot of things that we've seen over the last while that could put people in a position where they feel like they have to follow orders. But I think part of it was to see how much we'd fight for this. Now, I don't live
Hmm.
anywhere near the ostrich farm thing was going on, but I was very involved and I know a lot of people that went, and they were of all political persuasions. They were just people with big hearts that could not see the reason for this going on. And it went to the highest political levels. I mean, even Trump got involved and asked them to stop, stop this stupid ostrich culling. And, I mean, it went far. And essentially, most people believe it was just the government just trying to push their control when we have
Right.
control. And they came in with all these big guns and just put all these big floodlights out to the hundreds of people surrounding these 500 ostriches, and then just
So
shot
they
all along,
so
shot,
they
shot.
killed them all because they didn't
Yeah.
like the farm. They didn't like the farm having ostriches, like breeding them.
I think what a lot of people believe is they were a sort of a miracle bird. They were resistant to the bird flu. They were resistant to these viruses that were taking out the other chickens, and they would find one or two chickens sick in a farm of thousands of chickens, and they would go in and kill them all. And they've
Oh
they've been
wow.
they've been doing this. So when they went to attack the ostriches, apparently one ostrich got sick way upon a time. Um, did they check it out to see what it was? It could have had cancer. It could have just been old, it could have been a million things. So I don't know the entire story enough to really understand the entirety, except that people really cared. And I think it's actually brought the left and the right together more because a lot of people on the left are very compassionate, big hearts, really cared
Right.
about these ostriches. And so since the mainstream media has been pigeonholing this as a right-wing extremist, anti-vax thing,
Right.
because they want to, whatever. It's kind of making people see this is the politicians just want us against each other. And to me, that's our biggest problem is seeing the big picture, seeing it for what it is, not just one political party against the other, but that they want a major control system. They are bringing in the digital ID very quickly. In Canada now, all students have to have it to go to university. They're on it. I quit university a year ago because of it. Um,
Wow.
but it's going, they want to bring that in. What's really scary is if they get the digital currency completely set up with that. Once they have the digital currency and the digital ID set up, then immediately your home becomes a smart home. You're in the system, everything is set up. So,
Right.
if you don't get your next thing in the arm, or you don't want your kids to go to that school, they can take your kids away from you. I mean,
Right.
the rights it gives are crazy.
They have especially in Canada, they've shown that they have a track record for being anti-freedom, like Trudeau, and what happened to the truckers. They would freeze people's accounts. I think we talked about this
Yeah,
before, but
yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
crazy.
They
And
did. They
then
did.
yeah, and then if they have the digital ID and they're able to track you everywhere, they're able to block. Um, if they don't like you, they're able to make your life into a prison. Basically, they are able to, they would be able to deny you to buy flights, deny you to buy even Amazon packages or anything like that. They were able to, like, okay, maybe you know maybe you could go out in nature and go into a part of Canada where nobody lives, but you still need food, unless you're living like like a survivor, like a MacGyver type of guy. You're not able to live outside the system because they're making it so hard, right? That's the threat, because they
That
you
is
think
the
that
threat, and that
they want to do that.
oh yeah, they want to do that, and they probably will. And sadly, there will probably be some people who will go along with it out of fear.
Mm,
I think what we need to realize is that our currency of gold going forward is each other. It's a
mm,
community of care. It's stopping and feeding someone who's hungry. It's making sure nobody dies alone.
right.
It's reaching out and saying, how can I help? How can I be of service? And being of service makes us feel good. That is why Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12-step programs have been so successful, because they base everything on connection with source, with a higher power
Mm,
or the highest expression of yourself,
right.
steps towards personal growth and service to others. And when we live that way, our lives work well and we're
Oh
freed from
yeah.
addiction and personal problems. So I think that's what we need to focus on. So now when I talk to people, I'm always saying, take time to sit in silence and get to know your neighbors. Next weekend, I'm doing a healing circle for the community I live in. It's like in the middle of the city, but there's 73 units, and just bringing people together. Most of them are really far left. And unlike me, during the pandemic, we were on different sides, but I've been teaching yoga here for years and have a health and wellness committee. So I do all these. So they know I'm kind of the health guru around here. Um, and that's the thing. We just have to reach out and be there for each other, and trust will get by because we are aligning with the principles of love. We are
Hmm.
aligning with nature, because even this whole climate change thing is, yes, we have serious problems with the environment, with air, soil, and water pollution. But what
Hmm.
they're saying the problems are about carbon, it's absolutely not true. And there's tons of PhD climate scientists that are swearing on that. As soon as they tell the truth, they get cut off, right? They get cut off from their jobs, from their university posts a lot of times. Some of the universities haven't fired them all, but
Right.
there's a documentary people need to realize we're not the problem. It's the corporations that are the problem. It is the corporations that run the world that are creating the vast majority of the pollution, that are you know putting so many people in poverty while the wealthy scrape up all the riches. So
Well, even Bill Gates recently came out and said that climate change is not as a big threat as he thought in the past. So
yeah.
there's some give. Seems like there's a little change. And I was watching Joe Rogan podcast with Elon Musk, and they in the first like 10 minutes they made kind of uh, a joke about that. There's It's kind of funny that for years he was warning, oh, the world's gonna collapse. The world, like I remember, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in U.S. That far left, um, not she's not a senator, but she's a representative, and in the House Representatives, and Congresswoman, and she was saying 5 years ago, she was saying, "Oh, the world is going to end in 10 years." And look where we are now. Nowhere near that. I don't think if the world is going to end, it's going to be maybe by a huge. object from the space. It's not gonna be climate change because it's the world's the world's been through climate change before humans have even existed. It went up and down through the centuries. So, but it's interesting that Bill Gates comes up and says this because it means even the people on the left now are maybe changing their view of that. It's not as catastrophic as I was saying. He's saying Bill Gates, but maybe a little too late because
What? You know how
he's
I look at that?
okay. Yeah,
Sorry to interject there. Were you finished sharing? Because I just jumped in because this one
yeah,
is the way that I see that with Bill Gates coming forward is he's got something up his sleeve. There's too many people waking up around climate change and realizing it's been a hoax, and that's not going
right.
to pull the people into the small cities and um or that's not going to get them their end goals. So what he's coming forward to say that. Why? There's got to be, this guy is has proven again and again and again that he is corrupt to the core. I mean, you just have to, some people may not realize that because they've just been following mainstream news forever. But
Right.
anybody that looks at the facts and figures coming out of India and Africa, where there are many Supreme Court lawsuits against him for harming children, for vaccinations and the toxic vaccinations for, I mean,
Oh
it's
wow. I didn't know that. They're
yeah.
suing
It,
him in India because of abuses,
but
vaccines.
all of this just gets written off because the judges there are given $1 million to annul the cases or whatever. I mean, the Supreme Court, now we no longer have the rule of law in a lot of countries. Canada, what it is you've got an administrative branch who basically make the rules and then tell the judges. You no longer have legislative power where the Congress and the Supreme, where they say what's coming in. So now these bills are coming through, and I don't know if it's that everybody is corrupt at these levels, but
Mm.
right now we've got laws coming through in Canada to completely end freedom of speech, to completely end the ability to, you can be shut off the internet and your cell phone just like that because you like a post that they consider they don't like, right? Simple
Yeah, here
things.
in
I
UK
mean,
it's the same. Here in UK
yeah,
it's the same. If you post something that the government doesn't like, they will come to your door.
yeah, and arrest you. And then try
Yeah,
going on a holiday and flying away and doing all these things. No, it's
right.
getting super serious. We need to really be stepping up right now. I'm personally, I would like to leave Canada. I no longer feel safe here.
The thing is, where do we go? Okay, United States right now is going in a very good trajectory, I would say. But who's to say that the next president is going to be good? Maybe Marco Rubio or Vance are not going to be elected next time. Maybe it's going to be, God forbid, Cortez lady, and then you're
Or
like,
fall
oh
apart.
my gosh,
Yeah, or
everything's
completely
gonna
fall apart, or completely fall
right,
apart. And nobody is willing to show up at election date. And I mean, it could become the United States, what it has going for it is the Constitution, and they are doing everything to destroy that right now. There are so many countries that are just love the Constitution and wish we had it.
right.
um and we don't have the same protection. But there's a lot of people very aware in the states that are watching what's going on, that are hanging on to their guns if they need it, that are making connections with neighbors. And I think that it's going to get pretty muddy before it gets better. And I think the real savior in this is for all of us to do our healing work, because if we can't sit with fear and anxiety, and that immediately leads us to addiction or distraction
Right.
or whatever, we're not going to be able to purify the amount of feelings and emotions that are going to come through us in the days to come, because we have to be able to sit with our feelings, and then we have to be able to have a higher goal, like a higher self, a higher power, something that makes us move towards doing the right thing and
Right.
not towards what just keeps us safe in the moment. And that to be more important than anything else. That's why we need to have inspiring community around us. Just get out, help each other, talk to people. If your neighbor's hungry, feed them, And then if you need
Right.
help with something else, get them to help you with that. Like where service just becomes a babysit for your neighbor who's got to go to work. And,
Mm.
there's so many ways we can be of service, and there's a lot of people that are watching right now that are afraid, so we can't stop talking because that is what allows totalitarian systems to
Right.
really speed
Right.
up more than
I,
anything.
now that you said that, it reminds me of something that happened that really made me sad. And there's a lot of conspiracies around it too, which is about Charlie Kirk getting shot in the United
Right,
States. Now, I think he was a
right.
tremendous force for the good. Um, and I don't know if he was shot by that shooter or if he was shot from the back, like some people say. But what happened since then is that his funeral and a lot of people coming together and praying and all of these. I saw a picture of Glenn Beck, Tucker Carlson, Bill O'Reilly, and some other people being together, in one shot. And I used to watch a lot of Bill O'Reilly. I don't know if you know Bill O'Reilly, who he was, but he was great. And then he was ousted from Fox News. Anyway, it just goes to show that all this event and people being more emboldened, especially in the United States, to speak out now, like Charlie Kirk was saying, and to not be afraid, because I think that's what happens if nobody is stands up for non-integrity, then it takes over. Like he knew, like according to the text messages, he knew on some level that he might get killed because of Turning Point USA, and he indeed was. He had like a premonition. So, but I think his example inspired other people. Like there's a philosopher, Eric Hoffer, says history is made by examples. Somebody started it, and he was such a force for good. And he was saying to young people to get, in a way, to get purpose in life, to get a family, start, fall in love, have kids, which is the opposite of what the mainstream, the people on the left, like people. If you follow people like Bill Gates, you would be afraid to have kids because you have no hope for the future. But thankfully, we have people like, well, Charlie Kirk and Elon Musk saying, if you have kids, that's a statement of optimism, for the future. So speak about that. What do you think? What do you think his killing represents, and where do we go
Oh
forward
man,
from that?
this is such a loaded thing, man. Okay, I'm gonna have to be honest here. I really don't know, but I do see Charlie Kirk as divisional in that a lot of things that he was against, like say abortion or different things like that, on the
Hmm.
left, these are really big issues. As a woman,
Right.
men, their biggest fear in regards to women is that a woman would laugh at them. Women, their biggest fear is that a man will kill them. And anybody that spent a lifetime in a woman's body and is halfway attractive knows that we're at risk of sexual violence every single day of our lives.
Right.
And it's true. And if you are raped and you become pregnant and you're not able to afford, that's a horrible position to be in. And it shouldn't necessarily be men making the rules. So when somebody, this is not to say whether abortion is right or wrong, but
Right.
when somebody starts, and the other thing is like a lot of, and Jordan Peterson is was big on this too, telling women that really by the time you're in your mid 20s, you should be, finding a great guy and settling down
Right.
because you've got a ticking time clock. Well, if a woman wants to do a master's or even a PhD, or get a little bit of money behind her or status, so that if she ends up on her own, she can support her child or children. A lot of women aren't even having children until they're 30 because or later, because they're wanting to. So if they start moving into the dating pool after working hard in school, all the guys in their 30s, they can pick up somebody in their early 20s and have no
Right,
problem with
right.
that. And it's unfair. So it pushes women out of the market. So there's just and then there's all the anti-aging stuff. I mean,
Anti-aging stuff. What do
well,
you
this
mean?
is bouncing all over the thing, but I saw on a
Okay.
dating app the other day a guy in his 50s looking for someone who was in their early 20s because they needed to be young and fertile to have as many kids as he wanted. He was obviously very patriarchal. So a bunch of one woman who was very brave stood up and said, "Who do you think you are in your 50s wanting a woman in her early 20s, somebody who's going to take care of all your kids and do all that?" And he says, "Who are you to complain, as old as you are, looking as ugly as you are?" And just, it was like
Well,
unbelievable. And,
well, I think a woman this might be let's see. I think women have a right to have preferences, and I think if this guy goes probably in Canada, he's not gonna have much success, but if he goes to Thailand or Indonesia, Philippines, where they're looking for a older guy, that they're probably looking for resources, but they're not so concerned with looks and age, then you probably can pick up. And
oh,
but
he can.
the thing is, if he has kids, then I think it's a service to the world if he has more than two kids, because the average right now is so bad. But anyway, that's my view, that I
Yeah,
think
well, no,
I,
we're getting into so many cool subjects here. Let's jump back to Charlie Kirk for a moment.
okay, yes, let's do that.
There's lots of things. Well, Charlie Kirk, there's a lot of really wise, aware people that I know, and they believe that it was actually AI done, that he was not actually killed, that it was a big facade, and now he's gone down into the underground. They've got cities where the elite can go when there's going to be, say, a nuclear thing. There is so much in the world that we don't know about. Meanwhile, I've also heard from some solid sources that his wife was actually worked for Trump and was involved in, or the government was involved in human trafficking and bringing children in from other places. I don't freaking know. What I've seen is a whole plethora of stuff. I've seen him as a divisional character, even though some of the things he said I think were really good. But I've seen a lot of, he definitely had a very right position on a lot of things. And I can
Yeah.
see it creating, he wasn't somebody like Jesus who loved everybody and came in the middle and said, "Love your brother. Before you condemn that person, look at the stick sticking out of your own eye." He wasn't a person that just said, "We've got to love each other. We've got to unite." The
Well,
things that,
I think he was. I think he was saying we need to love each other. It's just that the politics of it too. Whenever the thing is, whenever you take a political position, even against the vaccines or anything, or for the Constitution like he was, or being pro-life like he was, that is a very controversial position for the left, and they will attack you all day long. I myself do not think that being pro-life is a heinous thing. I think it's if you're a Catholic, if you're a genuine Catholic, not like somebody like Joe Biden, then you're compelled by your religion to be pro-life. But most of these politicians are not. So I think it's a whole philosophical debate about, yeah, there's a rights to woman's body, but what rights does the fetus have? Because that's also a potential human being. So,
Right.
but that's a whole that's a whole subject in itself, right? So I don't
What
think,
Yeah,
yeah,
what getting back quickly to Charlie Kirk, all it takes is something on the left or on the right where there's division about a person or
yeah,
whatever that's going to spark anger, hatred. I don't know what you know. I mean, I've been studying somatic healing for years. I've been studying about entities and how, you probably never saw this. When I was a kid in the cartoons, they would have a devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. And if you look at
right,
every culture other than the West has always seen, the potentiality of entity possession. And it doesn't have to be full blown exorcism, kind of rolling your head around and all that insanity. It's just a voice that might be telling you, she really isn't going to like you, or you're really not that great, or if people really knew you, they wouldn't like you. And you don't even recognize it because
right.
most people are not long-term meditators. I've been meditating for 40 years. I felt so crazy in my youth. I started meditating and it has helped me so much because I can get a completely still mind for long
Mm,
periods of time where there's just no thought activity, which takes a lot of training and discipline. And then all of a sudden I'll see a thought or an image drop into my mind that I know I did not put there. Our brains are receivers. And
mm,
I believe a big part of politics is to keep people fighting so that we don't unite, love each other, and use the real core principles that Jesus taught us, that all the religions have taught people, of caring
right.
and sharing and helping and service and alignment with nature and beauty and goodness.
Mm,
Um, and so for me, it could be that he was taken out or not, that it was just something to create a lot of division. And there was a ton of division that went on. It's still going on. People unfriending
right.
people, hating people.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
as far as the whole abortion thing goes, that is something that every single soul has to make a decision for themselves. That is something between them and their God, or them and their higher self. And for somebody else to say what to do with their body when they don't know why they're in that position, it's just not loving. It's not what Jesus would do. What would Jesus do? He would tell somebody to go to their soul in prayer and know within themselves. And maybe that would be having the child, and maybe it would be giving it up for adoption, or maybe it would be having an abortion. But we have to have eyes of compassion in this world. And
mm,
that means finding the middle way, like they speak about so often in Buddhism, where we have compassion, even sometimes when it's hard for us to understand. And so he was a person where that could create some controversy. A lot of people hate Jordan Peterson. I love listening to Jordan Peterson because I've
right.
studied psychology. He's so brilliant. He's read everything, and I've really enjoyed listening to him. I haven't always agreed with everything he's had to say, but I find him riveting, and he brings some really good points home sometimes. But there's people on the left that won't even listen to him because they've heard he's against
Yeah.
whatever. And
The
they
the
draw
thing,
a thing
yeah,
instead of keeping open-minded. We have to be
right.
open-minded.
I think the problem is that they oftentimes they hear from other people that Jordan Peterson is bad and Charlie Kirk is bad. And around the time that Charlie Kirk died after it, people were saying, some people online are saying, well, I heard he said a lot of hateful things, but I wanted to check for myself. And I checked for myself and I realized this man was not hateful. Like if you, there's a politician in US that from Somalia, I forget her name, and she's a Muslim, and she was saying on some program that I don't care, I shouldn't honor this man because he was a hateful man. And just because you disagree with somebody's political position, you know, it's like the Ten Commandments. One of the commandment is do not bear false witness.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to lying, but a false witness is in terms of in a court, you say this man did something even though he did not. So this happens a lot of time in politics. And this woman saying that he was a hateful man and not it just baffles me. Like he was, if somebody is pro-life doesn't mean they're hateful. If somebody's pro the
Yeah.
Constitution doesn't mean they're hateful. If somebody's like Jordan Peterson is saying that, women, because he's had a lot of experience being a clinical psychologist and having women in their early 30s come being lawyers and saying, I don't want to work 60
Absolutely.
hours per week.
He's got
I want to
he's
have
got
kids now.
He's
Yeah,
brought good points home. He's got brought
right,
really good points home. And it's true. And our whole world has been pushed, into this feminism that's often robbed women. We have more single women now, single mothers than we've ever had. And is the world getting better? That's why it's so important for us to keep an open mind and focus more on unity, on trying to see the other person's opinion. One of the things that I was taught as a counselor, that when somebody is talking to you, listen so well that you can repeat exactly what they're telling you, maybe not with the exact same words, but have it in your heart. Be that good of a listener. And when
right,
we do this, we're really attuned. We are present. And people haven't learned the art. Like if I was to develop a school, I would have kids outside playing, learning how to meditate first thing in the morning, how to
right,
share with each other, how to if you want a candy, then you have to buy one for your friend too, and just little simple things, so that the
right.
world gets a little sweeter. So that, that we don't yell. Yelling hurts our hearts, like back to basics, right? But people, haven't done their healing work, and they're just reacting instead of responding so often, and that hurts everyone. So yeah, I think really right now in our world, we all have to do a lot of healing work, and we have
Yeah,
to really align ourselves with the highest expression of ourselves, so that, or of, creation. Um, and really try to have compassion. Like after Charlie Kirk died, I was abhorred by the amount of people that were actually making jokes about it and happy about it. And I was
right,
saying, whether he died or not, whether he did bad things or not, potentially there's a man who's dead. Cannot afford to laugh at tragedy, no matter
right.
what went down. And I think most people thought he really did die, but in uncovering different things and looking at different things, there's some people out there that feel it was just a part of what are we going to pull as
Right.
our next big thing to
I
divide people.
I just want to share that I think he did die, but the thing is, I cannot be 100% sure. Just like some people say the moon landing was fake, or I don't know. I think it was real, or like people saying that the 9/11 attack was faked and not real attack. I happen to believe it was real. But it's going back to Charlie Kirk and Peterson, it's like I want to interject something really optimistic because what's happened in the last 4 years since COVID, and something that I never thought I would see in my life, which is because of Jordan Peterson and people like Charlie Kirk, there have been a lot of young people. Like there's been a trend of young people becoming less and less religious and going down. But in the last 3 or 4 years, young people, particularly maybe because of Jordan Peterson and Kirk and maybe some other influences, the counterculture has been to become more traditional, to become religious. And somehow, when people listen to Charlie Kirk, his old videos, or when people listen to Peterson, some percentage of those young people eventually become religious and become generally good people. So there's something that's happening, even though we have all this left-wing media, all the Hollywood that's promoting becoming more hedonistic and all that. Despite all of that, there is this changing shift where becoming, and this is why I think Trump got elected, because a lot of the young people nowadays, especially young men, are becoming more religious and more traditional. So I'm like, wow, I never thought I would see that in my life, where people are more becoming more traditional. It's like becoming back, becoming more old school, even though you're in the new school, you know? It's
Yeah,
amazing.
how I see that is that people tend to move back to particularly fundamentalist religions, like the more um, when they feel afraid. And the
Mm,
last 5 years have made people very scared.
right.
It's COVID times, financial challenges, deaths in families, fear for the future. When we feel insecure, there's a lot of atheists until they're on their deathbed.
Yes,
So,
that's true. It's very
yeah,
easy to be an
and
atheist
yeah,
until you're on your
exactly.
deathbed.
Until you're dying, and then you hope that it's not the end, right?
Right.
And then there's others like myself that came, I was raised Catholic. And I believe it really helped me over the years. Sure, I had a lot of guilt and other things from being raised strictly Catholic, very strictly. But there was a lot I gained. And so when things were really bad, I prayed. I guess I had an unshakable faith in God, in creation. And I had an absolute miracle happen when I was 19,
Mm,
after a horrific attack where a guy had tried to strangle me. And I wanted to die following this. And I had a mystical experience that was unbelievable. And it changed my life forever because I never doubted again. That's why I started meditating and started reading deep books and philosophy and religion and psychology and started working on myself and seeing where I was addictive, seeing where I needed to change, looking at my life patterns. And I also went into 12-step programs then. So working those 12 steps all the time. And that can be a
mm,
great growth producer. Um, so for me, it's been a great gift. But over the years, the more that I've grown, the more I see it like God or creation. There is this incredible source that is the great mystery that we'll never know about. But we're also fractals of that incredulity, that big diamond, wherever it is, that has all these jewels in trillions of forms on our planet and elsewhere that are
mm,
dancing but are always connected to source. And as we live our lives, the more we dedicate ourselves to source by going into silence through prayer, being of service, helping our fellow man, the more little miracles we will get. And I believe that deeply. The more synchronicities will happen in our lives, the more goodness. So if people are returning to religion and they are spending more time in silence, in prayer, that's a good
mm,
thing. That's going to help us. But if they're going into a type of religion that hates other religions or hates other people or thinks they're better than another sex or better than another kind of person, that's a real problem. That is, God is love, in my humble opinion. And
right.
anything that believes it can bring violence on another for whatever reason, because maybe they have a different culture or a different religion, that's scary. So I think it's
Well, I
great.
think they're not being hateful. I think the fact that a Buddhist or a Muslim or a Christian would believe that their religion is the only true path to life is very common. But I think that's preferable over being a selfish atheist. So there's degrees to that. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people, especially early on in their spiritual development, they need a structure of a religion and a community of a religion to help it. Because or or they get in a way lucky that they almost die, and before they die, they go into a 12-step program and they start working a step, which is more spiritual. But that's I think that's more of a rare path, because most people aren't in a 12-step program, but religion is very widely available to people. And I think yeah, but I think I agree with you. It's very common that somebody that goes into religion, and especially even within Christianity, and thinks, oh, my you know for example, I started going to a Baptist church 6 months ago. I'm not really throwing in 100% with the Baptists, but I go because I like the community. I love the people. And people always, I'm always there and people come to me. But I think just the fact that they believe that their religion and their path and their way is the true one, I don't think that negates all the positive benefits that they receive otherwise. I think they might be maybe slightly mistaken in that, but I don't think it's you know what I mean? It's preferable over the alternative, which is being selfish
Well,
and, you know,
yeah, I think that you can't really put selfish and atheist together. You could also have selfish and religious. I
it's
think
true,
that
true.
I think that anybody that raises their child and lives their lives in a way where they align with what is right, where they understand their heart, where they live from love, where they watch nature and align with nature's principles. Nature is so abundant and so generous and so giving. We have so much um, trouble on in our world from churches, religions connecting with state and all these privileges and others, like there are challenges that come through religion. But
Right,
there are not challenges that come through becoming the best expression of yourself through working on yourself and whatnot. But I do agree that one of the gifts of religion is community. You can go somewhere, meet people, talk about good things, have a prayer group, prayer for each other, help each other. We need more of that.
mm,
And where we go wrong with religion is judging others. Um, like actually, Jesus was very involved in the Essene movement and the Gnostics when he was alive. And the Gnostics believed in a lot of that. They were very prayerful. They ate very pure diets. They did a lot of
mm,
meditation and prayer, and they lived very aligned with the earth and the seasons and gave thanks for everything. Very simple lives, often lived in nature. And they were not, they disagreed with Judaism. They disagreed that there was the God up there that was fearful
right,
and judgmental. They believed that it was more this expansive love force in the universe of which we were all a part.
right,
And they also they would have spiritual experiences, do breath work and all sorts of cool things that are very popular now, yoga. But they also believed that there was another source or force in our world, which I really believe is behind a lot of the problems in our world, that is parasitic, that is like that devil on the shoulder that can get into
right,
people's minds that I have seen through my
right,
own meditation. And actually, in somatic healing, where we help people to find their parts, like there's a part that just wants to go get drunk, and then there's the part
right,
that hates the part that went and got drunk and feels hungover and just I'll never do that again and I hate being drunk and I can't believe I did that, or the part that eats the ice cream like crazy and is really overweight, and then the part that says, you
right,
fat pig, you shouldn't have done that. And we've got all these parts, and they're all born from wounding. But then you have people that are really traumatized, and they'll have parts that are like just fucking kill yourself, pardon my language, that are so
Yeah.
awful, and you don't know where they come. And as you work with these
I've
people, you
had that.
realize
I've
there are
had that.
entities. Yeah, most of
I've
us
had
have.
that. Yeah.
I was stopped at a red light recently, or actually a crosswalk, and this little old man with his cane started coming across so slow. And I looked at him and my heart melted and I thought, "Oh my God, that's just like my dad. My dad's got Alzheimer's. He's so slow." So of course, the red light goes green and you're still waiting for this little old guy. And I've got this heart full of compassion and love for this little old guy.
Right.
And this voice pops up and says, "Just frickin' go and bowl him over." And I'm like, "Where the hell did
Wow.
that come from?" Because all I was just filled with love. And all of a sudden, this really toxic thought comes into my mind that was not from me. And I thought, "Oh my God, but that's just an example of this other source." Now, we have such a small amount of the dimension that we're in that we can see. We can't see. Some people have the ability to see into other dimensions and see a lot more than we do. So
Right.
we don't see all these other disembodied beings. But if we did, it would be different. You see, Jesus was in the desert for 30 days praying, and the devil came to him and promised all this stuff. That's exactly what this other force does. They promise us riches and they try to, yeah, do that. You can get away with it. They'll never know. You just tuck that money in
Right.
your pocket
Right.
and all these things. And every time we open the door for that other source, it gets a stronger hold and it
Right.
calls
You,
us more.
you know
And that
what? This is very
really,
basic.
yeah, that is a really
Th-
big part of the problem going on is people don't realize that. And they have so much shame around these aspects of themselves that are so vulgar or awful or shameful that they don't talk about it and they don't go and heal all these parts. And instead they're run by fear and anxiety and just a drive for more power and control and to be
right.
liked, you know?
The thing is that if somebody becomes religious, I would think, well, I if I could make a recommendation to somebody that just became Christian, I think it's also imperative that they on a mental level perhaps find a therapist, a really good therapist, because doing stuff on a spiritual level is great because that's the highest level you can work on. But also it's good to get some help mentally because perhaps you have some belief system because you could have some trauma from your past that you haven't fully healed, and it's so, or like you said, meditation is very good. And
Mhm.
what you were talking about, the first step becoming, let's say somebody becomes fundamentally Christian, there's a saying, I don't know who said it, but that the fear of God is the first step towards wisdom, meaning that now they're
Go to the
starting to,
Bible.
maybe because they were before they didn't think twice about stealing something from a store, but now in their heart of hearts they're like, maybe I shouldn't do that. So they are holding on to something greater than themselves, some ideal version of themselves, which is, in a sense, Jesus, which is, becoming Christian is kind of like, what would Jesus do? And
Right.
because you're a follower of Christ, so you're like, maybe I shouldn't steal this from the store. Maybe I shouldn't, shouldn't have said that to this SOB yesterday. Maybe I should apologize. Stuff like that. That is, you're starting to doubt yourself because you're starting to doubt the negative part of yourself that's there, and you're like, there's something wrong there. I should maybe change. you know, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
first step, right?
Right. Well, another interesting thing from the Gnostics is they believed that, well, and we've seen this. We've seen the scriptures change, books taken out of the Bible and whatnot. Things
Yeah,
changed
yeah,
over time, priests no longer being allowed to marry. And that's a pretty tough thing. It was devastating in the fourth century when the Nicene, they had um what was it, the
And I
Nicene,
see in
well, Creed
uh,
was written, but the Council of Nicaea
na-
got together and made
right, right,
changes. And
right,
so people were all of a sudden separated from their wives and their families, and it was devastating. And it's pretty hard to spend your whole life as a celibate male person in the world. And you can see how deviancy could come by just trying to suppress something that is a natural expression of being human, like sexuality.
mm,
And
right,
there was a lot of changes. So one of the things that is believed, that I believe, because I've read some of the books of the Bible that were found in Nag's Hammadi when they did those 1943, when they found all those old books of the Bible, that there were things said there that make it, some of the things we're taught today, be absolutely false. Well, why would they change that? Well, perhaps for more control. So, getting back to what you said, the fear of God is the first step towards wisdom. If we were raised in a world where the scripture may have been changed from the love of God is
right,
the first step towards wisdom, that is a much more empowering statement. And it is, because when we are afraid, like, some people believe that this other source that is parasitic and can get in our minds may be a type of AI that is very intelligent. I know for me that usually when I get these thoughts, they're not as blatant as that one. Just bowl them over. That was like
right,
out of
right.
that was, I usually get real subtle ones, like a subtle image that wants to distract me from my meditation or where I'm at, or a subtle thing or something very smart. Like, they know everything about us. They know everything. They know where we're weak, and that's where they get us. So if we're fearful, these are parasitic entities that feed on fear, on anxiety, on
Mm,
pain, on suffering. They feed on our auric fields, and so they may be most attracted to the bright lights that are really living, let's just say, God's will, or beauty, or love, or living a life
right.
that just brings goodness to the planet. They're attracted to that, but they can't access them because their auric fields are more intact. But it's the people that are not living in alignment with love, that have more trauma, that have all these holes in their auric field. And I know this from studying shamanism and doing soul retrievals on people for years. That's how you help heal them. um, they will go in and just attach and suck on that person, and then put in negative thoughts like, just go steal that, no one will know. And then the second they steal it, you thief, how dare you, you should
Right.
feel ashamed of yourself, this kind of thing. So I just did an interview yesterday with a woman who's from the UK, and she is a very well-known somatic therapist, but she's also a hypnotist, and she also does past life review. Well, she takes people into their past lives, but she is well known for demonic entity removal.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
she really helps people get into these dark places. And I have a real interest in this because as I've done more of this internal family systems type of healing, I've seen more and more that people have these entities. They have these entities, and I've started learning and studying more about the removal. And even these
Mm,
entities, most of them all want to have peace, but they don't know it. A lot of times, source is everything, right? But they were somehow removed from source and become more and more um, basically just build themselves up like AI, and then die out, build themselves up again. Like there's this, but they don't have a soul that lives on.
mm,
They don't have emotions. They don't, and they're parasitic. We get fuel from our soul. We get fuel from God. We sleep every night. We get our nice sleep. And then in the morning, that energy button is fueled through the connection with love, through God. but these
Mm,
other sources don't, so they've got to feed off of us and our bad feelings. So yeah, my I think my work in the years to come will be helping people to understand this and to start to find the places, all these parts where they're wounded, because as they heal these parts and send these entities off somewhere else,
right,
because even the entities usually are just feeding they because they just need a food source. But if they could go somewhere
right.
else where they felt were whole, back to source perhaps, whatever, they would. And they do. They will leave. So
I have to say that it is very much true about the entity stuff because I've shared this on and off on the podcast that I have sometimes I've had a period of time where I was watching a lot of porn,
yeah,
and that would affect me negatively. You know, obviously there would be
absolutely.
the guilt and shame, and that's part of it. But also it's the energy of porn itself, which is negative.
Yeah.
And I remember one time my friend Michelle, that does also body talk, she also specializes in entity removal, which not a lot of people
Beautiful.
will touch, as you know. It's not a very popular thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then after she done that, the next day I was so full of energy. I was totally on the ball with anything. Everything. I was just like everything that was happening. I was like one step or two steps ahead. I was so much in the flow, and then I think within a week or so, I had a small porn relapse, and that kind of lessened. But it's
Yeah. Well,
crazy. It's
it
crazy
is,
how much
right?
that sucks on your energy, though. It's crazy.
Totally. Totally. So if you look at our seven energy main chakras down the front of our body, right? They often want to attach around those energy centers. And so porn and addiction, substances and porn are the two primary sexual addiction and substance abuse addictions, all addictions actually, are the areas where they can really get us because as
Mm,
humans, we can feel a lot of shame. Porn is particularly debilitating, partly because it makes us less successful in our own natural sexual lives. It isolates us, it makes us feel crazy and shameful and
right,
obsessed. And I mean, the whole thing, it's just creating such havoc on our in our world. And if we look at what the mainstream, shows us now, the violence they show us, I don't go anywhere near it because I learned very early on from all my meditation when I watch something violent or even a thriller, I'll be meditating in this beautiful space and then this image drops into my mind of this guy being murdered or something from the thing
right,
I watch, and it's like awful and it takes you right out of that peaceful place. So we have to really watch what we plug into our body, and the more we heal, the more we naturally choose to be free of substances, to be free of anything that is out of alignment with love. And we all know what that is, and we become more authentic, and we just
mm,
have a walk that's a lot more precious and
right.
beautiful.
Let me ask you this, because this has been on my mind for the past few months, that I have heard of people intentionally watching a horror movie or things like that to expose themselves to fear, but then use it as a way to almost like letting go of fear. There's a book called Letting Go: The Pathway of Surrender by David Hawkins that talks about getting into the feeling and then by accepting it and not wanting to change it. But I've
Mm,
heard of some people doing this in a way that they would watch that this is not common, by the way. I'm not advocating for this at all. I'm just putting this idea out there that they have exposed themselves to something that is negative intentionally as almost like an exposure therapy, but also to use it as a meditative tool to get fearful, to get afraid, and then to release that fear and that anger or whatnot that comes up. Do you think now it's quite a little bit weird? Do you think there's any usefulness in that?
well, there's a couple of things that come to mind when I listen to that. One is that there could be a part of ourselves that wants, we have protector selves, right? So we may have a part that might say, oh, say you're a parent and you love your child so much and you want to protect them. Oh my God, they're going out without a coat. I better get that coat. Or, oh my
Right.
God, they're going to school. Somebody's going to hurt them. And so you may become overprotective and in so doing hurt them, hurt the child. But we also have parts of ourselves like that that are protectors and want to protect us from things, and they can be really, really negative. They can push other people away who could be a loving friend in our lives out of fear because they're protecting our hearts. There are so
Mm.
many ways to look at that. But with the example of the horror film, no, I think that that is absolutely not the way. That life itself is a beautiful lesson in healing. If we are just to remain present in the
Right.
day moment, 1 second at a time, we will have triggers or issues that
Yeah.
come, and that is our treasure, to sit and to breathe and to feel deeply and to just stop. And what do people do? They open the beer, feed the ice cream, they do this, they do that, they phone a friend, they go for a run, they do anything but stop. And this is what we're trying to do in somatic healing, is take people right into the feeling, right into the fear. So part of that
Mm.
is right. You want to go right into it. But if it's like, a lot of people will watch horrors and stuff because of the chemicals that are
Right.
elicited in their bodies, that can become a bit of a high. And over time, people become more neutralized to it, and it actually shuts down a part of their heart chakra. Like, how can you see a ton of violence and be as open to love? You
Right.
know,
Right.
you can't be. So we really have to protect ourselves. We're so precious as humans. And we have just our way of being. Life, God, source will bring things into our daily lives for us to have a chance to heal on. And that's exactly what you do when you're triggered, is you just stop and you just feel it and you hold yourself lovingly and you just say, it's okay, baby, it's going to pass. I got you. I got
Mm.
you. You're doing great. Breathe, breathe. And this is how we get through. So I think that therapy is on a really good path now with somatic healing work, internal
Right.
family systems, hypnotism, EMDR, a lot of these methods that really help us to go in. And a new one that I've been studying called the MACE method, which is a really interesting type of therapy that postulates that our mind is like a receiver, and that when we have something that triggers us, especially when we're young, big triggers where we feel
Mm.
lonely or scared or sad, we get a mental picture that we associate with it. And so every time something, and that creates kind of a ridge in our energy field. So whenever in the future we meet a similar frequency or vibration that matches that trigger, that vibration will
Mm.
get triggered again. And so what it
Right.
does, it goes back to the original images and clears them from our body, so that
Mm.
when we run into things that might normally trigger us, instead of reacting, we just respond. We see it,
Right.
see, wow, I would have been really triggered by this years ago, but now I just see it for what it is and I move on. So
Mm.
that we're starting to find that just talking about things like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which is the most common type of therapy, talk therapy, you just talk, but it's not pulling out of your body and your energy body the trauma that has sat there. It's in the
Right.
mental plane, which
Right.
doesn't even touch the emotional and the etheric, the energetic.
Right. It's quite exciting. I mean, CBT, in my view, is not as even effective as something old school like Jungian or Freudian psychoanalysis. But you're right. I think there in the fact that somatic healing and other healing methods that are more energetic, they're able to cut through the heart of the problem a lot quicker than talk therapy, because talk therapy, you need to, like, you need to write a whole book. It's not just enough this. You need to write a
Right.
whole, you need to say a whole big book until till you get it all out. But with the energy healing, you're able to get there a lot quicker. Like with meditation, if you do the right kind of effective meditation, you're able to go in there and release the emotions a lot faster than sometimes the talk therapy. So
Mm.
I think meditation combined with therapy and prayer, if you do multiple things at once, and that's a lot faster than just talk therapy, right?
Yeah, there's lots of reasons for that too. Like say you're traumatized when you're two, or say you're traumatized at 3 months old when your parents decide, okay, no more sleeping with us. You're going in the crib and we're letting you cry it out tonight. This is a very
Right.
common practice in the West. That is so traumatizing. That is
Mm,
incredibly traumatizing. So people grow up feeling continually just that low grade fear with them, existential fear all the time. They don't know where it's come from. They remember their childhood is great. They don't understand why they feel so anxious, why they have the issues. And it's just that. That's a massive imprint in the energy field, but they're so young, they'll never recall it on a mental basis to talk about, oh, yeah,
right.
I was 3 months old, my parents, whatever. And so these types of therapy really help get into the energy body. Um, and that doesn't even, like we haven't even talked about the pull of ancestral imprints on us,
Right.
like say we have grandpa's an alcoholic and he dies, he doesn't cure his alcoholism before he dies, that addiction, all that stuff gets passed forward
Right.
to the descendants to heal. And so we've got ancestral imprints, which often will show up again when you're doing energy work because they're little energetic imprints. Or these parasitic influences are incredibly intelligent. They are like AI, and they know exactly where we're weak, where they can get us, and they're
Right.
just waiting for that time for us to become more weak.
Mm-hmm.
Say they know porn is the gate, then they're going to put a lot of thoughts. Once they know somebody's been susceptible, they will implant. And finding yourself a nice little mantra like I love being free. Just like
Mm,
because free of that pull, free of that thing, free of the shame, free of the isolation, free of the addiction, free of the loneliness, because it is a lonely thing, right? It's not like making
right.
love with someone who's awesome, right? So it's a completely different thing and it's just plaguing us. There's so many guys now that are so hooked on porn and AI that they will never have a partner. They will choose an AI partner and really be lonely because there's no real heart. There's no real
Right.
connection, right?
That, yeah, that'll be in the future. But I think AI can be used in multiple ways. Can be You can use it as a tool, constructive, and it's a like in the best way, it's your research assistant. It's your assistant. You're doing
Absolutely.
some work. You're creating a project. You're doing a side hustle. You're creating a business, and AI is helping you you would hire another person or two, and it's able to pull out things so much faster, and it's able to give you
Absolutely.
advice in a certain way if you use it in the right way. Like I saw the CEO of the big chip company, Nvidia. I think he's an American guy, and he was talking about how he uses AI. He uses it to teach him things. He asks it, he wants to know about this, and it teaches him. And he asks it to prepare for interviews and stuff like that, which is a wonderful. Before you needed a coach, maybe you needed to pay somebody to do the research. Well, with AI, he's able to get so much basically for free. It's amazing, and where we come. But yeah, just like you said, you can use it that, or you can use it as an addiction. Like a lot of particularly young men are lonely, and instead of going out there and facing rejection like I did recently, I did like that in Spain. I just asked
Congratulations,
women,
man.
I just asked women for the Instagram, and I got rejected, you know, I don't know, 50, 60, 80 times. I don't know what it was. A lot of times. But it was also worth it because I was surprisingly some women were like, yeah, of course, I'll give it to you. I'll give you my Instagram. But I think the fear, I recognize that when I was younger, I would not be able to do that because the fear of being laughed at, of the fear of rejection was so high that I would even the thought of me trying to do that, I would probably start shaking, you know. It was it's so overwhelming, you know. So I I have compassion for a lot of young guys, especially nowadays, because the society is not, you know, it's treating them like defective boys. So there's, you know, society is going through stuff. And oh, I wanted to point out this that today I went on a date with this girl from Indonesia, and we go into a museum, right? And there's all there was a display of early feminists, and she tells me, oh, this is the kind of feminist I am. I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is all for equality. But nowadays, a lot of feminism is hating guys, you know? It's
Yeah.
being superior, right? So it's a different kind of feminism that they teach in Indonesia and places like that, where it's more about equality. Oh, I can do whatever I want, which is good. But nowadays in the
Yeah.
West, because they've achieved equality, the feminism is still trying to do something, but it's now become negative. Like, oh, we're better than guys. We're equally physically strong. We can do anything. We're even better, and guys are, bad.
Yeah, there's the divisional stuff again, and there is the elite and their power that try to divide us because as long as
Right.
they divide men and women, they can get away with a lot because we need each other. And that we have to always look for the big picture. Are they using this for division? How can we come together? Feminism has really hurt women. I had a great childhood where my mom was pretty much at home always, and it was just like go out and play. We'd be out on the streets kicking the can around or a ball and hanging out, telling stories, picking clovers out of the grass. My parents didn't know where we were all day. It would just be come home for lunch, come home for dinner, and nobody worried about any. It was so
Right.
free. It was so nice compared to what I see going down with kids now. And feminism has made it very hard on women in a lot of ways. It's had some good, it's had some bad, but we have to always be aware of the big picture. And I want to get back just to what you were saying about fear. By asking people out, you walked through that fear and you got
Right.
surprises as a result. And that is exactly how we work through all our anxieties. Like when somebody has a phobia, say they have a phobia of a bird. When I was studying this, then what you do is they will avoid the outdoors. If they are, there are people that are so afraid of birds, they won't go outside. They
Mm.
won't let their kids go outside, or they won't go out with their kids, and people become completely disabled. And this one woman with her bird fear, she was able to heal it by getting close enough to a feather. The first time she saw a feather, she freaked out, and we had to teach her how to breathe by seeing a
Right.
feather. And then slowly she was able to hold the feather eventually. And then
Mm.
to actually see a stuffed bird, for example, and then a bird flying outside, and then stepping outside when a bird was flying. And this is how we deal with all our fears bit by bit by bit. And yet we have to be held. So either we have to hold ourselves and love ourselves through it, or we need a loving therapist or a friend or someone. and even like parents, when they're taught, when they become better at attuning to their kids and holding their kids when they're scared, when they're anxious, and just saying, it's
Mm,
okay, love, you can do it, or teaching their kids when to walk away. That might be a dangerous situation, babe. Let's just breathe and leave this now, or whatever.
right,
But so often we weren't parented well. Our parents did the best they could. This is not a blame thing, you know, but we're not parented well. And then we have to learn and teach ourselves before we can really be a good parent again.
right. Yeah, I think going back to something you said before about I'm really fascinated by the idea of uh, carrying on um, or healing something that was in your ancestral line. And
Mm,
I interviewed a woman once that did, I think, family constellations or something.
yeah.
And we did some work on the podcast itself. And but that's fascinating that so that means then if I worked on something myself, if even outside of that, even if I worked on myself spiritually, let's say, and have removed from myself some character defect as they talk about in some circles, some character defect, does that mean then if I have kids, then they're likely not gonna have that?
Possibly, although it can still be passed forward from uncles and aunts and grandparents and different things.
Oh, I see.
The main thing with kids is that if we can teach ourselves how to be present with our emotions, how to breathe, how to feel, how to stop and just feel. Same with communication. A lot of times we're getting in an argument with someone, we can get triggered then. If we can teach ourselves to stop and feel and breathe,
Mm,
stay present, stay attuned. Am I hearing what the other person said? Could I just repeat right back to them what they said? Not in
right,
the sense of it, not in the exact words. Then, when we have kids and they talk to us and we're really able to hear them with compassion, we'll be great parents no matter what comes down. I really believe it, the kids are our future. And if we can teach them how to feel, we can be there for them way better, because I think we're going into a time where all the systems are going to change. The economic
right.
system, the monetary system, the educational system will have a complete overhaul. It's so programming right now, and it's so left, as and woke as in general. Um,
Right.
and it's actually creating division instead of uniting us. Like now in Canada, 120% of the province I'm in has been claimed as Indigenous land. So all these people that have bought their houses are
Wow.
may lose their houses. They're not allowed to renew their mortgages. It's just absolute schmozzle.
How
So
how
the
much
Indigenous
of the
people,
province?
100, all of it, plus some.
Oh,
And then you've got all of more than all of it, because you've got all these different indigenous tribes that whose property boundaries are overlapping onto others, and they're calling for it. You see,
oh
they've done
my
something very
gosh.
sneaky, and this is the World Economic Forum and the UN did this. They started 7 or 8 years ago announcing you are on the unceded territories of such and such a nation, whichever nation. And we all thought as Canadians, all the power to them. Great, do that. Yeah, because we love our Indigenous brothers and sisters. We thought that's
Right.
just empowering them. We didn't realize it was a ploy done so that legally in 7 or 8 years they could steal all the land and do a
Wow.
complete colonialism again on all the people that have worked their entire lives to have a little apartment or a little plot of land, and then that is to be stolen.
And
But of
so they're
course,
not gonna get the money. So if they bought the house
no,
there,
no. And the mortgages get transferred to the First Nations people, the remaining mortgages. But the
right,
elite have also written into their policies that if the First Nations people are unable to pay all those remaining mortgages And of course, they're probably not going to be able to. Then
Wow.
the UN and the elite take it over. So it's just BlackRock sucking up more land, more, and it's creating massive division. Massive division. People are afraid they're going
Wow.
to lose their properties. So it's
Which province
insane.
is that?
This is British Columbia, and Quebec has just announced it too. Whole cities
Oh,
are being claimed now. So part of Vancouver's claimed, the whole city of Kamloops in BC, where I am, has just recently been claimed. Plus, do you remember a few years ago when they announced that 215 children's bodies were found in a, like, the bones were under the ground, and that in
right.
BC, near where I live in Kamloops, that city I said that's just recently been said it's being taken away, they never actually found the bones. They've never done a dig. They just announced that around the world to shame Canada when it may have happened, it may not have, but they've never had proof. They've never been willing to do a dig. And it may have just been the elite all along trying to make a good sob story so people will
Right.
feel sorry for the First Nations people and move into smart cities quick, quick, quick. Get out of your
Mm,
houses. And then, of course, they would also put the indigenous people in smart cities and say, yeah, well, once we figure out this land thing, we'll let you know. And they never
right.
will. I mean, we have to see the big picture of why all these things happen in order to stand together and say no, no across the board, no to digital IDs, no to more things in the arms that could hurt us, no
Right.
to whatever. And it's going to take people educating themselves to the big pictures of all these things. No, I'm not going to divide and attack you on the left if I'm right, or if I'm on the left, attack you. No, instead, I'm going to try to be part of the solution, part of unity. I'm going to be a source of love and service.
Mm. Wait, so the whole city of Vancouver is being taken over and sold, or a part of it?
At this point, it's part of Richmond, which is right beside Vancouver, where our airport is. It's been taken over. But like I said, 120% of British Columbia, the province I live in, which is probably the most beautiful province in Canada. I'm biased, but it's all beautiful, but it's pretty nice here. Um,
Right.
it's been claimed. So 100, all of it plus 20%. And now you've got the indigenous tribes fighting amongst themselves. No, that land's mine, that land's mine. And then you've got some wise indigenous elders that are saying, stop, guys. This is colonialism all over again. We have to
Right.
stop this. Nobody, like, in all honesty, nobody really should own the land. We should all just be building where we want and working with nature and loving each other and living in community and not thinking about ownership. All this ownership and money has been part of what
Right.
the elite has used to divide us for millennia.
It's, I'm still trying to wrap my head around 120%. How is it possible that they get, so that means they get the whole province plus another part of the province, or
It means the whole province, and they're fighting amongst themselves as to which tribe gets a percentage of this.
oh, I see.
So it means
Oh
so, and
my gosh.
that's built trillions of dollars. Like the money, this is
Right.
such an expensive place here. You can't find a house in
Hmm.
this province for under $1 million for even a little dinky thing in the city, that's nothing. It's a very expensive place. This land is super valuable. So it's, what is it going to do? It's going to create more racism. And the
Right.
fact, like, one of the girls that I went to university with years ago, I majored in kinesiology, minored in psychology the first time around, and one of the kinesiologists I worked with, she's part Indigenous. She went on to do a master's and then a PhD. And of course, all her schooling is paid for because she's of Indigenous, heritage.
Yep.
And now she's the head of Indigenous services out at the University of British Columbia. She thinks this is great that they take all the land. She unfriended me because I told her I didn't think it was a good idea. And I
Right.
also mentioned that a lot of my PhD friends were far too gullible during the pandemic to just not like to say follow the science when they weren't following the science, right?
Right.
They weren't looking at the clinical studies. They weren't listening to the other opinions. They were just following one opinion, which is anti-scientific. Anyway, some people believe it's really good. And what I believe is that these are the people who haven't done their hardcore healing work. Because
Right.
if they've
Right.
done their hardcore healing work, they will see all people as sisters and brothers with hearts of compassion and not be led by greed and power. They will
Mm.
be led by love instead and unity. So there are some amazing Indigenous people standing up that were really well respected by the Indigenous people before, and now they're being hated on by a lot of the Indigenous who haven't done their healing work. Um, you know, and it basically that's why we all have to do our healing work now so we can see past our individual biases and come to a place of open-hearted love where we can just love each other and stop judging each other and stop trying
Mm.
to take more than our share, and just making sure everybody gets fed and cared for on this planet.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough, and like you said, during COVID, we saw the gullibility, the brainwashing of so many people. And I think the brainwashing of the media, the fear mongering, has made it so much worse. And I think that's why a lot more people died than otherwise. If there was no hysteria in the media, I don't think so many people would have died. It's because they got this idea in their head and they were so fearful that but anyway, it's a hypothetical. We were never gonna
Well,
be able
that's
to change
true.
it.
That's true.
Yeah,
And they created using mainstream media, they created a situation where they put fear in people.
right,
They created an existential threat where people
right,
were afraid. And then what they do to create mass formation, like Matthias Desmat spoke of, is to have existential fear, right? And then you get presented with, and you feel, and also loneliness. There's so much
right,
loneliness in our world. Our world has created more and more isolation. The internet has created more and more isolation, less real connection. You take loneliness and existential fear and then you bring in a big problem and everybody's like, and then you find a solution. The solution was this, right? It was the thing in the arm. Everybody rallied. Oh, that's what's going to fix us. And the people that were seeing the bigger picture and perhaps had done enough of their healing work where they weren't so lonely, they weren't feeling an existential threat, or perhaps they just had a distrust of authority. Whatever it was that caused them to pause and say, let's think for a minute and say no, then it gives the elite a chance to come in and say, they are the unacceptables. They are the threat. The problem is the
mm,
anti-vaxxers. The problem
right,
is whatever it is. The problem is the people who don't want the digital ID or the central bank digital currencies. They're the ones causing the problem. And then they allow the people to go to war against each other and they don't even have to do the dirty work. The people just
right.
fight themselves. That's why we have to see the big picture. That's why we have to do our healing work.
Sorry, I just saw that at the time we went on for quite a bit more than I expected. But I want to just end on like like a sandbox of what would happen if we could create a school that would be so good. I always had this idea of it would be good to have a class where they're playing chess because that would be good for the brain. There would be musical learning an instrument, whatever the instrument they want. There'd be a class on that, and also meditation. I think meditation is very important. So any kind of style of meditation they want, I want to impose meditation. And also, if they're in US, I think prayer or the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever. But I think of something like the Lord's Prayer if they're Christian before a class. I think that would be good. But what do you think? Yeah, if you could create a school where you could create a few classes on top of the normal classes, what do you think would be the your priority? Like if you could just magically say, in Canada, we're gonna have 4 hours a week of this. What would you choose?
I would first of all say that this school is for everyone. And it is a
Mm,
school of personal development, whether it was child or adult or 90-year-old. And in that, you would put the things that are most important for healthy living. I would put as number one, sitting in silence. No
mm,
particular meditation technique, just sitting in silence, closing your eyes and feeling what's going on in your body and just watching yourself. And what will come up is your body will start going bing, 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 bing. I got to do this. I want to do that. You just watch it. You just breathe it. Sometimes it helps to focus on the breath a little bit just to help yourself sink. But because that's such a powerful gift for bringing out all this unhealed stuff, that you can start your healing work there. For
right.
me, when I first started meditating, I had a serious food addiction, sugar addiction, and my weight was fluctuating all over. I was in so much pain with this eating disorder, that when I would sit in silence at first, I would get up and just want to go binge. And I didn't know why, but it was because it allowed stuff to come up. And I still hadn't been taught how to hold myself, love myself, and
Mm,
just be there with real love. And that's another thing I'd bring to it. Sit in silence with great love. Like you are the most loving, protective parent of yourself that you could ever be. And you just
mm,
breathe and see that over top of you like a loving force just holding you. And then I would also pray. Prayer is wonderful. It is wonderful. I would also put nature in. You've got to get into nature, see the green, listen to the rivers, listen to the birds, let nature. And the other thing, service. What can you do for someone else? On
mm,
this day. And then play, like dance, music, really beautiful music, and put on some fun music and let everybody do some ecstatic dance for 20 minutes. Let the kids do that. That is so healthy without any kind of like just get your hands up and dance and boogie and you know um all these things they often say, when we've really lost our center, when did you last sing, when did you last pray, when did you last dance? All three of those. And when we can sing and dance and pray as a community and help each other, we change the world.
mm. That is very true. I think more and better schools are coming in the future, I think, hopefully. Um, but yeah, this has been all around conversation. And I want to thank you so much,
It's
Janetta
been
Jane,
great.
for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks. Great to see you again.
Great to see you too. And thank you everybody for listening or watching. And I need to hear